Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. There's a lot going on in the world, and I want to talk about something that has to do with this whole situation that we're in, this economic downfall that we're in, the coronavirus, this whole situation. Where does it lead? Well, there is a very honest rabbi who has finally spoken the truth about many aspects that relate to our situation and how it relates to the Jewish community and how Quran talks about this whole situation. We're going to discuss this, and we're going to look at how the rabbi explains this situation. I'm going to start off with letting him talk, and then I'm going to show you the verses of the Quran and the relevant information that has to do with what he's talking about. This is extremely important for especially Muslims living in the West, because they have to answer the question of how, because when we think everything's going to be great for the Jews, and it will be and it won't be. And so I'm here today to talk about the parts that won't be very good for the Jewish community unless they make some radical change. Okay? And so what this rabbi is saying is very much true according to the Quran. As the Quran says about them, yaktumun al-haq, they usually hide the truth, or they tend to hide the truth, especially in regards to prophecies of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So let me start off with what this guy says.
Is a mitzvah in the Torah that we say that from a thing of lies, stay away. Not the Torah doesn't say don't lie, it says stay away from lies. Why? Because lies in the end will always end up for a loss. Always end up for a loss. Either it'll show a loss that you have lack of emunah, or it'll show that you're a corrupt person, or it'll show other things that are negative. In general, a person should never lie or associate himself with a liar or a thing of lies. Like, for example, many people today in the Jewish community have associated themselves with a business that's full of lies. It's called cash lending, or what is it? Cash advance. Cash advance, if you're in that business or you know somebody in that business.
So cash advance is this thing that we have in the US. Let me show you what I'm referring to. Many of you would be aware of this, but I'm just going to show you. So these are, these are like some places where there's cash. It's like they don't really act as banks. Of course, banks also give, and he's going to refer to the banks, but as you know, in Islam and in Judaism, interest or usury is haram. Haram, haram, haram. And he's going to talk about this, but he's going to be talking about the people that when they need a loan, they can't go to the banks, then they go to these loan sharks. They go to these companies that are like, they loan out you cash. And like, one brother I know, he had a business, and he needed a loan because he was in a dire situation. This Muslim brother, he went to this cash place. They said, okay, give the title of your car to us. So he had this brand new car that he gave into their name so that he can have this loan, so he can finish this business project, so he can make the money and then pay them back. And so you get the idea, right? So so there's these places in the US where you can go and get cash but no matter what they do to you, you can't contest them. You can't go to court against them. They just take your stuff. And this is happening all over the United States. It is happening so bad. I can't express it, that, Muslims are so lucky not to be dealing with interest, but Muslims who have dealt with interest many of them have dealt with this, where they come and repo your car, they come and, repo your house, they come and repo any other collateral that you have, right? So anyway, listen to this guy.
Pretty much, kiss your olam haba bye. You have no share of the world to come. For sure. I'm not telling you because I don't like you, but I can tell you at least a handful of reasons why you definitely do not have a share of the world to come. Number one, a Jew is not allowed to lend another Jew money and charge him interest. Not allowed to lend another Jew money and charge him interest. If a Jew lends another Jew money and charges him interest, everybody loses their olam haba. The lender, the borrower, and the person that was involved in between. The broker. Everybody loses olam haba. Hashem says, not allowed to lend another Jew money and charge him interest. So what's the solution that the religious people did?
Over here I want to mention Hishem. Hishem is, in their terminology, God. Okay, so just so you're clear. Let me start this again.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You can fool him You could fool yourself, but you can't fool God. And Eter Iska specifically is supposed to say that it's not a loan, it's an investment. But it actually has to be an investment, not just say it's an investment. Like you could say it's Pikachu, you could say it's a parrot, you could say it's a building. But if it's really still a loan, then hey, it's a loan. How do we know it's a loan? That you have to pay it back no matter what happens. That's what makes a loan a loan. What makes something an investment? An investment is something that if you can't pay it back because you lost it, you don't have to pay it back. Why? That's an investment. You invest money, sometimes you lose the money. It happens. That's an investment. Once you have something says, whatever it says, but in reality, it's a loan because you have to pay back no matter what, your Eter Iska is toilet paper. Actually, it's worth toilet paper. At least toilet paper you can use it for stuff. This you can't use it for. So all of these Eter Iska, I was in the business world for almost 20 years. I know a lot about this stuff. So it's not the, I don't have anything against these businesses. It's just a reality. Eter Iska that people sign is complete garbage. That's number reason one. Second reason. Reason number three. In the last 6 years since I left the financial industry, the industry of lending found an old law that is literally something that can lead to the next Holocaust. Now, you're going to call me extreme, you're going to call me crazy, but if you pay attention, you'll see exactly why.
Leading to the next Holocaust. Just keep this in mind. Because the Quran tells us about anti-Semitism. وَضُرِبَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ الذِّلَّةُ وَالْمَسْكَنَةُ أَيْنَمَا ثُقِفُوا. Humiliation and degradation has been heaped upon them. So wherever they go, they find anti-Semitism. Okay? And so I'm going to show you that verse, but let's listen to what he's saying. There's certain things we're doing against the Torah, including lending money, right? And the way we're dealing with the people, sucking their bloods out, that is going to lead to our Holocaust because we're not obeying God. We're not obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
There is an old law in America called a COJ, Confession of Judgment. This law is not a new law, but nobody actually used it. In 2014, only 12 filings of confession of judgment suits were filed. 12. Now there are literally thousands on a monthly basis. Why? Because the cash advance business decided they have...
I hope you understand what he's saying. 2014, I think he said there was only 12. That means that people took money and they, did a confession that we're not going to go to court against you. Okay, so there was only 12 cases where they tried to dispute that agreement. Now there's thousands, meaning thousands of people have to give up their property, whatever their collateral is. It could be a part of their house, could be a barn, could be usually it's a car or some other thing that's valuable. It could be jewelry. They have to give that up, which costs much more than the money that they're receiving. Okay, and this is happening all across America because as people are getting more desperate, they're doing more desperate things.
Unfortunately, a Jewish lawyer take advantage of his brain in a negative way and decided to add this COJ to the application. Why? Because the cash advance business is notorious for lending money to people that don't have money to pay back. That's why subprime mortgages failed eventually because people bought houses they couldn't afford. So you lend money to people that can't pay it back, or they're just riskier loans. Why are they going to you? Because they can't get it from a bank. That's why they're coming to you. If they can get it from JP Morgan, they can get it from a real bank. Trust me, they're not coming to you. Why? Because the bank's interest is 5%. Your interest in the cash advance business could be as much as 400%. Only a moron will borrow money from such a person or a desperate person. Moron or desperate, whichever one comes first. Sometimes both. Now, here's the kicker. This COJ is malach hamavet for lending. It's like the death penalty. Why? Because a person that borrows money, he signs an application. If things don't work out, I lose the money. I borrow money from you, I lose the money. In a regular JP Morgan, Chase, Wells Fargo bank, I lose the money, I don't have it. They could sue me. We can go to court. I can prove my case. They can prove their case. We have years to fight it. If I put collateral, I didn't put collateral, it could take a while. The cash advance business was notorious for losing a lot of money for years. Why? Because most of the borrowers not only were not able to pay back, but they didn't have much collateral. And even if they had collateral, they would do different types of things to hide the collateral. They would sell it. They would put it to a different entity. Long story short, the borrowers would find a way not to pay back the lenders. So what did the lenders do? They decided to add the COJ. What does a COJ do? COJ is an application that says I am guilty regardless of what you accuse me of. I already deny my own ability to even go to court. Which means the minute that somebody is late, we're not even talking about defaults, the minute somebody is late on their payment, its payment is due on the 15th. He forgot to send a check. Forgot this essentially happens. You're human after all. Your alert didn't happen. Forgot. Within 48 hours, the lender, the cash advance company, could take all of his possessions that were under collateral of that loan. Without court, without a judge, without even a lawyer. Nothing. They simply take everything without even providing the court a proof that he actually defaulted, or he's late, or even that this is even collateral. They can simply say whatever they want. And within 48 hours, they literally can take possession of his house, his business, his car, everything. Everything that was mentioned on the original agreement. Now, why is this horrible? Because, unfortunately, this leads to a lot of crime from greedy people. That, what do? They are not happy that their guy's paying them 300% interest. It's not enough for them. Just like Maram Masechet Sukkah says, you give somebody 100, you want 200. You give him 200, you want 400. They're not happy with their high interest. They want even more. What? They say, listen, what do you want? You want to borrow 50,000? No problem. Pay $500 a month? Okay, no problem. The guy pays 2, 3, 4, 5 months. They get bored. They say, listen, even though we're making good money out of this, we can make more. How? We'll pretend he defaulted. We'll go to the court, say, he defaulted. Why? We don't have to prove anything. We have a COJ. He signed his death penalty. Over here. We go to the court. The court goes to afterward. The marshal agrees. We go to court. 48 hours. All of the collateral is ours, and he cannot even fight it. Like even if he goes to a lawyer, you know what the lawyer tells him? Can't help you. It cannot help you. Now, this leads to what's called gezer. Gezer is stealing. No person could ever get Eden if he has even $1 stolen. If he stole, even $1 that he stole in his life, cannot get it. He cannot go into Gan Eden. So you see, you have another reason of why COJ. Last reason I'm going to tell you.
He's saying you can't go to paradise if you stole even $1. This is the Jewish law.
Who knows the first 2 laws that Hitler implemented? Hitler, Yimach Shemo v'Zichro, first 2 laws.
Now this is very interesting. Listen very carefully. The first 2 laws that Hitler implemented.
That not only put him in a different status than everybody else for the rest of history, but also made what's called until this day the biggest financial miracle in history. Who knows?
So Hitler did 2 things that made Germany from being basically bankrupt country to the most flourishing country, which Germany alone was fighting wars against others that were against it because of these 2 rules.
The first 2 laws. Before the Nuremberg laws. We're talking about years before. Hitler first comes into power. What's the first 2 laws? Okay, I'll save you the time. Rule number 1. No more pornography. No more homosexuality. None of that garbage. Not allowed. Berlin, in the 30s, in the 20s, was the Sodom and Gomorrah of the day. They were the Las Vegas of the day. They were the Sodom and Gomorrah of the day. Homosexuality, pornography, all the bestiality, all the garbage of the world, that was the capital of the world. He outlawed it. You're no longer allowed. Closed all the bars, all the gay clubs, all the production, which were all run by Jewish people. Unfortunately. Second rule. What's the second rule? Second rule was you're not allowed to charge interest. No more interest. Now you would think, why? What does he care about interest? Well, because all the people that had the money, that lent the money out, were Jews. He didn't like it. So he said no more interest.
He is saying, as a rabbi, all the lenders, or majority of them were who? Were Jews. And this is why the Quran and gosh, the Muslim countries wake up and they also implement 2 rules. No pornography in our country and no interest in our country. And you see the success. Why are these idiot fools following the West, the Western model? When even in the Western model, the most successful financial situation was in the case of Germany.
Why? Because of the high interest that the Jews charged people was so high, it ruined, it destroyed the economy in Germany. They destroyed, just like they destroyed Russia a few years before that through their communism over there. Jews destroyed Russia, not Louis. Jews destroyed. Communism is by Jews. Well, don't let anybody confuse you. You look at history, Karl Marx, all the other Shaim, they're all Jews. Wicked, but nonetheless Jews. They destroyed Russia, and he wrote in chapter 2 of Mein Kampf, they destroyed Russia, now they're destroying Germany, that's why I have to destroy them. Now, this doesn't make things right, the point is that's actually real true history. Now, he saw that the Jews are controlling the financial system.
The banks brought down the czars, the banks brought down the Ottoman Empire, the banks brought down Germany and the other countries that were around it. This is a longer discussion, but let's continue.
And they're charging such high interest, they destroyed the German economy to the extent that by the time you arrived to go to the store to buy bread, you had to take a whole horse carriage full of money. By the time you arrive at the store, it wasn't enough. Why? Because the inflation rate was so high. The bread became so much more valuable and your money went down. So now he says, what's this the cause of this? Because nobody can afford to do anything because the interest rates are so high. So he decided no more interest rates.
This is what happens when a country is in debt. It goes to hyperinflation, and it may be, he's giving the example of Germany, which was really an extreme state, but you might decide to go to buy bread, and the bread is, $1,000, but by the time, because there's such a need and a need for it, by the time you get to the store, you're left with the last bread, and they're saying get it for $2,000 at a hyperinflation rate. And just like those of us that are living in America and maybe other parts of the world, that that now, because of this shutdown, which basically is what happens when the economy slows down, right? When the economy slows down, people are not buying, not selling, not trading as much. Things are much slower. And so therefore the supply is less, the demand increases, prices go up. Okay, anyway, that's a longer discussion. The point I want to make here is that this is the situation we're in right now. This is the situation we are in right now. The debt of the dollar is so high that it is going to lead to two things. Number one, hate against the Jews, and number two, which can then force the Jews outside to leave America, because the economy will be so bad and anti-Semitism will be so high. And in fact, over here, let me show you the verse of the Quran that I'm referring to, and then come back to this. And let me explain this verse of the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ضُرِبَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ الذِّلَّةُ وَالْمَسْكَنَةُ ضُرِبَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ الذِّلَّةُ أَيْنَمَا ثُقِفُوا. We've heaped upon them humiliation, dhillah, dishonor, like humiliation. أَيْنَمَا ثُقِفُوا, wherever they live. إِلَّا بِحَبْلٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ. Number one, except by the rope of Allah, meaning the exceptions that Allah has given. So at the time of Dajjal, which is a little farther away, as you know, Jerusalem has to come to full power before Dajjal comes, and Medina has to become completely desolate before that happens. But until then, until illa bihabli, by the promise of Allah, aw habli min nas, or by a covenant or a rope from the people, meaning you're in Muslim lands, you have the certain rights. Okay, even till today, they live basically in Muslim lands. When they were in Spain, they were living in Muslim lands. They've always found hope and security in Muslim lands. The West has always mistreated the Jews. Okay, so وَبَاءُوا بِغَضَبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ, and they've earned the anger of Allah by the things that they were doing against even their own book. وَضُرِبَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَسْكَنَةِ, and we heaped upon them a sense of helplessness. Maskana is a state where you have two arms, two body, you're very strong, but you just can't work. You're mentally handicapped. You're not physically handicapped. So, يَحْسَبُ كُلَّ سَيْحَةٍ عَلَيْهِمْ, this is the situation the Jewish people find themselves in today, that they're always in a fear of this Holocaust, okay, this helplessness. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ يَكْفُرُونَ بِآيَاتِهِ. This is because they deny the ayat of Allah, even those that are with them, the laws of Allah, the ayat of Allah that are with them. وَيَقْتُلُونَ الْأَنْبِيَاءَ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ, and because they killed the prophets, and the last of their prophets, they tried to kill Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, and the two prophets before that, Yahya and Zakaria alayhim salatu wasalam. ذَلِكَ بِمَا عَصَوْا, this is because of the transgressions they've done, وَكَانُوا يَعْتَدُونَ, and they would go beyond all bounds. So wherever they are, anti-Semitism takes root. Okay, let me just show you this. Anti-Semitic attacks in the US have doubled. Okay, Christians and people and atheists are waking up and thinking, hey, who owns the banks? Who's doing all this? Who's in control of all this? This is leading to a lot of hate. Okay, there is still so much evil. Growing anti-Semitism stuns American Jews. I remember a case where, I was part of a group of, like a kind of like an interfaith of the rabbis and the pastors and so on and so forth. But I myself saw that there was an incident where the graveyard of the Jewish people in the community, in that particular community, somebody had come and hurt the entire graveyard, like taken things out and, created a really bad situation. And then there was another situation where I know in that same location where a few days later or before, leaflets were handed out against the Jews in America. So this is increasing, and this is going to reach to a boiling point, because the bloodsuckers, the few Jews, the few bad Jews, are going to give even the good Jews a bad name. And just as they did this to the Muslims, now Allah is going to turn and do this to them. Okay? And so, let us look at another verse of the Quran that I'd like you to look at. وَقُلْنَا مِن بَعْدِهِ, and we said after this to the people of Bani Israel, لِبَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ اسْكُنُوا الْأَرْضِ, live in the earth, go about in the earth, scatter on the earth. فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ الْآخِرَةِ, when the second promise comes of you coming back, جِئْنَاكُمْ لَفِيفًا, we'll bring you all back here to Israel. We're going to bring you all back here. And this is what's at work right now. So wherever they find themselves secure and powerful, but by the time they go back, everywhere they go back from, they're going to make sure that they wreck that place. They're going to wreck America. They're going to wreck every place they leave, so that, you know, so that you could say that fear doesn't follow them. Okay? So let's continue now.
Now to charge interest rates. And at that time, the Great Depression was happening around the entire world. Everyone was in a financial collapse. America was a financial collapse. England was a financial collapse. Everybody else was collapsing. Germany collapsed worse than everybody else. But after he passed this law of no more interest, within 6 years, Germany became the leading, wealthiest economy in the world. They called it a financial miracle. Why? They were the only ones that were bold enough to stop interest. This is one of the biggest reasons of why he hated Jews. Because they destroyed the economy, because of their greed. Rabotai, it's not making them right. Don't let this confuse you. But this is happening again. The cash advance business right now is destroying the economy in America. Why? Because all of the people that...
This is happening again, not only because of the cash advance business, which he's limiting this discussion to. It's happening because of the banks now. It's happening now because of the Federal Reserve. Okay, so it's much bigger. He's talking at just a micro level that these cash advance businesses are giving the Jews a bad name, but it's actually at, you know, it's at the cash advance level, it's at the bank level, it's at the Federal Reserve level, it's at the government level, it's at the international level.
That are defaulting, all of the people that are being stolen from, guess who they are? Small businesses. Small businesses are what build economies, not big businesses. Coca-Cola, Apple, Google, Amazon, all those big companies, they're good for business, but they're not the economy. What makes an economy, what makes an economy prosper, is when there's small businesses starting and small businesses flourishing, because they are the ones that actually hire the most amount of people. If you have small business grow, your economy grows. You have small business decline, your economy declines. I was in the financial business for 20 years. This is one thing you can't challenge. Now, when you have an industry that their number one objective, directly or indirectly, is to destroy small businesses, guess what? This is happening again. And you'll see, nobody listens to me, nobody listens to the Torah, nobody listens to history, and everybody ignores it. This is going to be a huge blow-up, to the extent where you can see how Edom, just like the Torah says, Edom is going to come back again, Edom becomes America. Edom becomes America. Why? Because America is Edom, after all. But you'll see what happens. And you'll see that all of a sudden the 6 million Jews that are in America, that feel comfortable, that are sometimes in government, that are sometimes in politics, that are running big businesses, and so on and so forth, guess what? Same exact thing happened in Germany. We were in politics, we were in business, we were prospering, we were great. In Germany, same exact thing. In Greece, same thing. In Rome, same thing. In Egypt, same thing. But guess what? We get greedy, we get sinful, we become the Shahi. What happened? Hashem says, oh, you want to be the Shahi? I'll punish you. With what? With the same goy that you wanted to become like. And this, Rabotai, is what's happening under our noses. And unfortunately, this, I don't know whether the Gedolim that we have in this world today are...
And the same is true for Muslims. When we want to become like the other and give up our values, then just as Allah will punish them, Allah will punish us. لَن تَجِدَ سُنَّةُ اللَّهِ تَبْدِيلًا. You will not find the sunnah of Allah change. Allah deals with everyone justly, just the same.
Unaware or nonchalant, I'm not really sure. All I can tell you is, I've had in my career 5 times, maybe 6 times, where I had an aha moment. Meaning, I saw something, to me it was clear as day. I knew this deal was going to work out. I saw a stock, it was $4, I said this is worth 32. How long? 2, 3, 4 years. It's going to be 32. Sometimes happen faster, sometimes longer. 5 times in my career, certain things like that happened to me. This, for sure, is an aha moment. Unless the government actually, by Chazdei Hashem, by mercy of Hashem, interferes with that industry and completely ruins it, we will see a Holocaust starting from this business. Trouble. I'm sorry for you. You have to quit. Yes, please. 8%? 80. Okay, that's still.
Yeah, you can't do that. Number two, what if they're going? You were talking about not okay.
Okay, I don't beat around the bush. I'm going to tell you things as they are. I was on Wall Street for 16 years. I had my own firm. I know a little bit more about the financial business than any rabbi in the world. Why? I was on Wall Street. Before I was a rabbi, I was on Wall Street. I had a firm, I had a brokerage firm, had a hedge fund, had an insurance company. Baruch Hashem, I was an executive. I was on CNBC. I was on Bloomberg. I was somebody. It wasn't like some guy that worked at Merrill Lynch made $100,000 a year. You did an $85,000 deal where you lent somebody $85,000. I made $1.6 million for myself in one day. So there's a little bit of experience that came with it to get to that point. Now, so what I'm trying to explain to you is that it's not a matter of what's the deal, what's the profit, what's the commission, what's the company, what's the industry. It's a matter of what's right, what's wrong, what's allowed, what's not allowed. Now, a Jew, first and foremost, is never allowed to lend another Jew money with interest. Now, the exception is if the Jew that's borrowing the money is a Mechalel Shabbat, you're allowed to charge him interest, but they still do not recommend it, because if that Jew does tshuva, you have to pay him back all the interest. But needless to say, you're not allowed to lend the average Jew that keeps Shabbat money and charge him interest. That's rule number one. So that means that any Jew that you deal with, even if you don't know he's a Jew, which most likely you'll run into, because sometimes John Cohen is a Jew, John Cohen is not a Jew. So you're not really going to know. It's not in the application to say, Mr. John, are you a Jew or not? You're not allowed because you put you in jail. So you don't know if he's a Jew or not. So that means that every day you have a 50-50 chance of losing Olam Haba. Every day. Who wants to be in such a business? That's number one. Number two, even if you only deal with goyim, you're still not allowed to do something called usury. Usury is overcharging.
Goyim is non-Jews, right? So he was talking about Jews that don't keep the Sabbath. You can charge them interest, and the Goyim, the non-Jews. But you can't steal from them. And so just keep this in mind.
And lending money in such a way, or doing business in such a way, where it hurts the public. When you charge somebody an interest that is drastically above the norm being bank rates, regular bank rates, and what's legally allowed according to the law, when you charge them such an interest rate that it becomes very difficult to the extent of almost impossible for the average person to pay it back, you are not...
Keep in mind, the Federal Reserve is creating that situation at the global level, at the national level.
In a business where you're taking advantage of people. If he can go to Wells Fargo and get the same loan for 8%, and you're charging him 80%, it doesn't matter you're not 300%. Even if the average was 8 and you were 15, you are in a problem. Even if the average was 8 and you are 30, you are in a problem. It doesn't have to be 300. 300 just means you're just a psychopath. 80% is still highway robbery. 80% is still against the law. Still not allowed to do even for goyim. Why? Because it's usury. But even more so than anything else that I've just said, when this is eventually exposed to the public, it will leave every single member that works for these companies, even as a clerk, even not as a broker, a clerk, a secretary, a janitor, works for ABC Lending, that does cash advance when it's officially disclosed to the world, because Hashem is going to do that. Guess what? Chilul Hashem. And any single person that's involved in Chilul Hashem, the Reshit Chochmah says what the Gemara in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, page 17a says, he goes to Gehenom and he doesn't leave. Ever. Even after Mashiach. So why would anybody want to associate with even one...
He just mentioned the Messiah, by the way. He's even after the Messiah. But he's basically saying that this is going to give us a bad name, and we need to stop this, because everyone's going to find out, everyone's going to see that we're in the lending business. Okay? I think this is enough for now, but let's end with a few points here.
Percent of anything I just said. The lending, the taking advantage, the Chilul Hashem, the usury, the unethical, even the rabbi that you said that you really shouldn't do it, but you can. What kind of rabbi is that? It's a puppet. You have to find yourself a real rabbi that's going to tell you, not allowed. No, not recommended. Not allowed. Not allowed. That's what it is. Not allowed. You have to quit tomorrow. Why? Because I love you and I'm telling you the truth. You have to.
All right. So, what is the point of all this? The point of all this is that this lending crisis, this Federal Reserve crisis that's being created by lending, the government, and everybody gets a stimulus package, which in the end we all have to pay, and then everything comes tumbling down because no one believes in the dollar anymore. Who's everyone going to look at? Because by the time this all comes down, everyone's going to know the truth. It can't remain hidden, right? And so everyone's going to become anti-Semitic, okay? And over here, everyone's going to become anti-Semit, like an anti-Semit. Even though Muslims, we love Jews, If you become Muslim, we love you. We love the prophets. We know that they're laysu sawa. They're not all equal. There are some good Jews, but some bad Jews. There's some Qarun among Jews, and then there's some possibly people like Muhammad Asad, rahmatullah alayhi, amongst the Jews, or Maryam Jamila amongst the Jews, rahmatullah alayhim. So, okay, so I'll end here. Leave me your comments and your thoughts about this scenario that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has talked about before. It will bring you back to Israel, and it will create anti-Semitism. And the situation of this lending, the riba, how this is creating the same situation that had existed in Germany again in the world, and that will lead to wars. Because what happened after all of this lending, and the bankruptcy of the countries? We got World War I and we got World War II, and so now we got bigger weapons, stronger weapons. We have cyberspace weapons. We have weapons of unprecedented strength, right, compared to before. So what will happen this time around, after all this lending and all this crisis, what will happen this time around will be 10 times, 100 times worse. And so we need to get ready, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, inshallah, I will end here. Make sure to subscribe today, and make sure you like, and make sure you leave your comments and ideas. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله